This is Innovate Africa, a series highlighting innovation and creativity across a continent that is on the rise. Today on Innovate Africa, African scientists using satellite technology to map the future.
Space in itself is an economic sector. The one who has information actually controls the future.
A South African physicist invents the world's first digital laser.
So what we want to do is come up with diagnostic tools for HIV, but that are photonics based.
And a new technology to bring low-cost internet to the remotest parts of the continent.
Across Africa, science and technology are playing pivotal roles in our development. In today's program, we meet African scientists who are fast-tracking the continent's future. I visited the South African National Space Agency to find out how looking to the stars is helping improve life in Africa. Africa has become an increasingly complex network of ICT systems. Space science and satellite technology is no longer a new frontier. Mobile devices, navigation systems, radio and television signals, internet connectivity, and even disaster management are all being facilitated by thousands of satellites orbiting the Earth. Space science is now a critical pursuit for African countries, with an increasing dependence on space-based technologies. With the mobile explosion across Africa, space will be providing solutions to the continent's growing ICT needs. And South Africa is leading the African space race. The South African Department of Science and Technology has set space science as one of the 5 grand challenges for the country in their 10-year innovation plan. In order to facilitate this, SANSA, the South African National Space Agency, has been formed. Dr. Jane Allwich is the Managing Director of the SANSA Earth Observation Unit. I'm quite excited about this whole experience. I'm personally a fan of space, from the days of Star Trek and all of that. But there's some people who would say, why are we spending money on space technology when we have bigger problems in Africa, like hunger, disease,
That's exactly the biggest challenge about space. You see, many people still think that space technology is very expensive, and they look at poverty and disease and wars, and they say these are more urgent, but actually not, because space technologies are meant for those countries that are experiencing disasters, that they're experiencing poverty. The one who has information actually controls the future.
SANSA's Earth Observation Unit collects and assimilates data transmitted from orbiting satellites. Here, the satellite imagery is interpreted and used to support policymaking, human settlement issues, agricultural development, and disaster management. Hi, I'm Tafuma. I was told you are the right lady to see when it comes to exactly how we apply the satellite imagery. So what exactly is going on here?
We're looking at a satellite image here called Spot 5. So it gives us the capability to observe what is happening on the Earth's surface from space, and we are able to acquire information over a larger area compared to what you will normally see when you're walking around the street or when you're driving. And then we can do analysis. So our end users are mostly government departments. So what we do, we analyze the images and convert it into information that they can use. For example, if we're looking at human settlements, we can monitor urbanization, the rate at which our urban areas are growing. On this particular image, all these settlements that we're seeing were there in 2006.
Yeah.
And over here, this image was taken in 2013. There's been massive development.
That whole bottom part is
This whole part was in there.
developed.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was developed between 2006 and 2013. If urbanization is not monitored or managed, it can have negative impact on the infrastructure. Like demand of services can be higher than the supply, but also it can also have negative impact on the environment.
Are there other parts of Africa that we're monitoring in the same way?
The images that we acquire here at SANSA, we don't just acquire for South Africa, we acquire from the equator coming down to South Africa. So that information we share with other countries or other agencies.
Nighttime images of Africa transmitted from satellites can also help to assess zones on the continent without access to electricity. It's easy to spot areas without lights from the skies. Apart from human settlement and resource analysis, satellite imagery has several critical applications for Africa. Pollution, particularly in bodies of water, can be quickly identified using different color wavelengths.
Normally the water body should have one color, so the minute that we have different colors, it shows that there is a problem.
Pollutants and the overgrowth of organic matter like algae can seriously affect the safety of Africa's valuable water sources. By spotting these contaminants quickly, alerts can be sent out and the pollutants contained or removed.
If we acquire this image today and then we have another image maybe end of the month, we can see where's the algae moving. Then they can also see where they need to concentrate on.
Large-scale disaster management is also one of the key applications of satellite imagery in Africa. Areas prone to flooding stand to benefit hugely from space science.
This is an image of Mozambique. This is Chokwe village. That was taken before the floods. And after the flood, with the satellite imagery, we are able to see the areas that were affected by floods. All the blue to purple is water that was accumulated during the flood. And that agricultural area, subsistence farming, it's all flooded there. So that could also affect our food security. With such information, we are able to model in terms of which are the areas that are likely going to be affected by floods if we have similar rain. So in so doing, then we'll be able to plan better. The local authorities will be able to place people or approve development in areas which are safer.
Would you say that Africa's future is in the stars?
Space provides us with capabilities to monitor today, yesterday, and plan for tomorrow.
It isn't only Africa's weather conditions that can be tracked by satellites. SANSA is also host to the only space weather regional warning center on the continent. Here, the scientists monitor the sun, its activity, and its impact on space weather. Space weather is the term for the conditions experienced between the Earth and Sun.
The main driver of space weather is the sun, so we monitor the sun in different wavelengths. That's why you see the images of the sun in different colors. We want to see different layers of the sun. It has some activities, it's not always quiet. We get some space weather events like the solar flares, the coronal mass ejections, or the solar energetic particles. It can affect some of our technologies.
Solar flares can have devastating effects on the continent's communication systems, electricity supply, and even on satellites themselves. By predicting these solar events, scientists can send out early warnings to deactivate certain grids and systems until the flare has passed.
Main regions which we are interested in looking at on the sun is these bright areas on the sun, which are the main regions that explosion happens. And then these bright areas on the sun, they are called active regions. If we see any changes happening on these measurements, then we know that it's going to have an effect on the Earth.
So how much of the information that we get at SANSA is given to other African countries?
Well, we do recognize that space is shared, and so technologies and data especially has to be shared.
You were saying you had one more reason why it's important to spend money on space technology?
Yes, because it's important for all countries to be on top of these things. Otherwise, you are just a beneficiary of what other countries have planned. For example, when you have information about good areas for agriculture, which crops to plant where and when, you control food prices. And that information is critical. Space in itself is an economic sector.
Although Africa has gone digital, with mobile devices and internet connectivity wiring the continent to a global ICT network, getting connectivity to remote African areas is still a challenge. Rough terrain and lack of infrastructure often mean that the installation of telecom cabling is expensive and in many cases impossible.
L'Afrique n'a que à peine 1 ou 2 lignes pour 100 habitants. Pour creuser, ça coûte très cher et l'Africain est en retard. Il faut un déploiement qui permet de faire quasiment l'équivalent des fibres optiques dans l'air.
Scientist Dr. Victor Agbenunu may have found a way to bypass conventional connectivity with his patented transmission system.
Le dispositif donc est issu de la solution PWCS, le Polyvalent Wireless Communication System, qui permet de faire la voix, les données et les images.
The PWC system receives a satellite data signal and is then able to disseminate the signal via PWC transmitters over great distances, making telecoms cabling unnecessary. Most importantly, the PWC connection can be provided at a fraction of current cost of systems offering similar satellite connectivity. While satellite broadband connections are available in Africa, they are far too expensive for most people in countries like Senegal. Africa has the most expensive broadband access in the world, with monthly data packages costing about 3 times more than on any other continent. Victor has been working on his innovation in Paris, where he has been given permission to test the system, and it's working well. He has brought together a group of African scientists who have funded the research and development themselves. They are determined to offer the service to Africans at either low or no cost.
Nous, notre groupe que nous constituons, a des produits avec la finalité de l'usage et de l'utilité. D'abord, pour l'Afrique, si demain ça peut servir pour d'autres, il n'y a pas de problème. Qu'on est venu, comme moi, comme les amis, tout ça, d'Afrique, de quoi on a souffert, on est les mieux placés pour pouvoir définir et concevoir le produit.
Victor and his team realized that providing a data connection was not enough, as many of the people who stand to benefit the most don't have access to computers or even electricity. Their rollout strategy is to focus on schools.
C'est le kit élève. À l'intérieur, nous avons donc la tablette.
So the tablet would be powered by the solar power panels that you have installed into the backpack that every child would have.
Oui, c'est ça.
An extension of the PWC innovation is a solar-powered educational kit called Retisse, bringing hardware, software, data connection and solar power together.
Il peut avoir sa batterie qui va l'aider pour continuer de travailler la nuit. Même si l'école est sous un arbre, ils peuvent avoir le même dispositif que ceux qui sont en ville.
What I love about what you've been able to develop here is that you are thinking all the time about who you're creating it for. The PWC system has been hailed as revolutionary, and Victor has had several lucrative offers from both America and Europe to buy his patented technology. But he has refused to sell.
J'avais voulu que pour une fois, on montre sur le continent qu'on peut inventer, accompagner une invention jusqu'à son développement et la matérialiser par l'industrialisation du produit.
Standing his ground has meant that Victor has been battling to secure non-commercial funding for the PWC project for several years. Used to paying top dollar, some African institutions have been skeptical of its functionality and have questioned if something so cheap could actually do the job. Today could be the day Victor convinces them all. After months of negotiations with the Senegalese government, he finally has permission to pilot the system at schools in Dakar. Dignitaries from across Senegal have gathered at this elementary school, where Victor will demonstrate the Retis system here for the first time.
Il faut que politiquement, on décide aussi que les produits soient fabriqués en Afrique. Ce serait bien qu'on ait une usine d'assemblage du kit ici pour au moins l'Afrique de l'Ouest.
After initial introductions to the package, it's time to demonstrate the functionality of the kit in an actual classroom. Victor has a lot riding on things at this pilot school going well.
Aujourd'hui, pour venir à l'école, vous tenez vos sacs comme ça au dos. Et je vois déjà pour une petite fille comme celle-ci, ce que cela pèse. Qu'est-ce qui pèse plus lourd? Bon, voilà. Dans votre sac à dos, vous avez quoi? Crayon, gomme, cahier, livre et tout ça va se retrouver dans votre sac électronique. Et quand vous allez à la maison, cette batterie que vous avez, vous allez la brancher pour continuer de travailler à la maison.
Ils sont là pour vous donner une bonne éducation. Bravo.
La fête est incroyable.
Là, si j'appuie là, l'élève veut lever la main aussi.
On va poursuivre le combat pour que chaque enfant sur le continent bénéficie de la solution.
Merci beaucoup.
And from Senegal to a lab in Pretoria, where two physicists are using light to make dramatic advances in the world of science.
The ability to harness light and use it in the form of a laser beam has been successfully explored by scientists and technologists. Lasers are used in everything from simple barcode scanners to industrial manufacturing and medicine. Bloodless surgery, detection of pollutants in the atmosphere, protection of aircrafts against heat-seeking missiles, and even safeguarding structures from lightning strike are just some of the laser applications scientists are exploring. But at the Council for Science and Industrial Research here in Pretoria, South Africa, researchers are taking laser science to the next level. Here in this laboratory, Dr. Sandile Ngobo, a laser physicist, has created the world's first digital laser, a brand new invention with the power to completely change the field of laser science.
So you can think of it as a laser beam that changes all the time. It's a movie kind of laser because all the time you're changing the digital holograms inside the laser to generate different beams.
With a conventional laser, there's no way to modulate or change the shape of the laser beam itself. It can only be projected in one form. If multiple shapes are required in order to complete a series of tasks, the user must either use many lasers, each of a different shape, or attempt to shape the beam using expensive specialized optical elements.
That every time you want to change the shape, you must go buy a new laser. So we can think of this as a way now that you can actually generate a laser that can actually generate different beams in real time depending on what you want to do.
With Sandile's discovery of the digital laser, operators will now be able to use software and a digital interface to control and change the shape of laser beams. This will drastically improve functionality and performance across many industries without the expense of multiple lasers or extra optics.
So now it makes the whole laser changing shapes to be very versatile.
The digital laser has the potential to revolutionize telecommunications. Data transmission could be sped up dramatically using the programmable laser to replace conventional optical signal transmission.
You can have a detector on the other end, where if you send in a certain shape of laser beam, it represents a specific letter. And that's where most people want to actually take it from.
Is it in the laser labs?
No, in your lab.
In my lab.
Sandile's laser is now being used to assist in the field of biophotonics, the science of using light to manipulate and understand the inner workings of cells and tissues in living organisms.
So all of them like that. I particularly am fascinated by these ones because then we want to make a matrix of cells.
Sandile's colleague and friend, Dr. Patience Mthunzi, is currently experimenting with this digital laser in the hopes of streamlining the process of cell sorting. Cell sorting is critical to Patience's current experiments. She is Africa's first graduate and doctor of biophotonics.
We are using lasers to actually come up with ways of studying different diseases or disorders.
Patience's main focus is on developing non-invasive treatments for some of Africa's most prevalent and life-threatening diseases.
Think about in the future when we have things like personalized medicines, where we can actually take some specimens from your body, manipulate them and plant them back in your body. That could be very exciting.
Human bodies are made up of trillions of cells. When a disease like tuberculosis or HIV takes hold, the body's cells come under attack. The current treatments for these diseases have no way of distinguishing between infected and healthy cells. The side effects of the medications can often be devastating, as both infected and healthy tissue is attacked. Patience is working on a way of targeting only infected cells for treatment, using laser light.
So Ndoni, this is where we would cryopreserve our cell cultures. We keep them in liquid nitrogen.
This biological cell culture laboratory allows Patience and her team to manufacture synthetic tissue models from human cell samples.
So you stock these cells so that you can use them for the experiments with the lasers?
Yes. So these you can keep them forever.
These cells are then infected with the disease being studied. In order to separate infected cells from the healthy ones, Patience and her team set up laser systems for optical tweezing.
Are you all set?
Yes, I am. I see we have to wear the goggles to keep our eyes safe, but it's quite nice that they make us look like rock stars as well, hey?
So physics is cool.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
This here is our optical trapping setup, okay? So what we want to do is eventually come up with diagnostic tools for HIV, but that are photonics based. And this is where it all starts.
Optical tweezing allows individual cells to be manipulated.
You want to be able to directly go to the HIV positive cells and either get them, manipulate them, inject them to administer the ARV drugs to them specifically. So it's not as toxic for the entire body.
That's exactly it.
You see this little cross? That's where our laser is. So this particular trapped now, so you can move them.
A laser beam is aimed at a cell. The cell is drawn to the beam's magnetic field, and the cell can then be moved individually. The scientists can then inject the cell with experimental treatments and watch its progress.
I'm also just thinking of the fact that what I'm manipulating is tiny. I can't even see it with my naked eye, but I'm able to control it using this machine.
See what I meant by science fiction?
It's quite fascinating.
So we're trying to eliminate all sorts of problems that come with taking ARV therapy orally. We want to make sure that, we target in the body now, no longer in the test tubes or in plates like this, in the body exactly where the virus is lying dormant.
On a larger scale, this application of laser technology could one day lead to whole-body optical trapping devices that could separate the infected and healthy cells in each patient and make sure only the disease cells and tissue is targeted.
It would be a joy to have such a thing in Africa.
It would make a huge difference. Is there any kind of goal or project or ideal that you're looking to in the future that you would really want to achieve, that you're striving towards?
If I can have a medical device that has my name to it, that would be awesome.
I have no doubt that it will happen.
That's it for this series of Innovate Africa.
We've showcased creativity that's uniquely African.
But that's just the beginning for a continent that is brimming with confidence.
Over the next few months, we'll be seeking out more inventive thinkers.
Here on a continent that is on the rise in Innovate Africa.